Hey guys, we're here in South Carolina on Lake Keowee in Seneca, South Carolina. Just doing a little bass fishing tonight. I'm gonna let this guy go real quick. He's plenty alive. We're out here bass fishing, but my brain has already switched to turkey hunting. And one of the questions that I get a lot of times is, what do I do when gobbler hangs up at 70, 80 yards? Now, a couple of times that I've addressed this, somebody said, get a better choke for your shotgun. And I get that. But we like to bring those birds in, bring them in close, and make sure that we're making a good ethical shot. So I want to just lay out a few little scenarios for you real quickly, and then I'll show you a video clip of what happens sometimes when you use one of these techniques. So here goes. The first thing that I would do, if I've got a bird that's fired up, maybe he's got some hens with him and not coming in, committing all the way to our decoys. Two scenarios that are set up there. One, if I have decoys, then I'm going to keep calling real softly, but a little bit more sporadic than what I maybe started calling when they first came off the roost. The other side of that is, if I don't have decoys, then I'm going to use silence and try to get some distance between them, actually pulling away from where the birds are or where I first initially set up, if I can do so without being detected, and maneuver away to make the tom think that I am, the hen is leaving him, and maybe drawing him a little bit closer, especially if I'm calling for another hunter. This is a fantastic technique. Hunter stays put where we originally called, and then I try to get 40, 50 yards behind him, hoping that tom will close a little bit of distance. This has worked many times. I like to look for a spot where there's a little bit of a rise in the terrain, where I can get over that rise and then duck down, or maybe even a creek bed, and maneuver along that creek bed to create distance. The other side of this is this. A lot of times that tom in the morning is just not willing to commit. And so it requires us being patient and silent. This scenario happens sometimes inadvertently. We'll have a scenario where I'll set up, call, the birds respond, they fly down, and then they typically, or in this case, they would go silent, and I would kind of like, let's just pack up and leave after maybe 40 or 45 minutes of waiting. A lot of times in that moment, we'll see the bird, and he's just been slowly maneuvering his way in. So silence is a great technique when the birds are a little bit henned up. Now, I get it, but this is difficult. It's difficult sometimes because if I can't specifically see the bird, then I'm not aware of whether that bird's working towards me, whether he's working away. And so I get nervous and I'll just start rapping on the call again, and a couple of geese taking off. But I use a mouth call, a diaphragm call a lot with a pot call. Usually only use a box call when the birds are way far off. But in that scenario where I've got a bird hung up, I'm not sure where he is, I may use all three. So rotate between the mouth call, the diaphragm call, the pot call, and a box call, just to make him think that there's multiple birds and maybe get him to gobble or fire up again. What you'll see in this video clip, though, is a moment where Josh and cameraman have been sitting in a blind all morning, and this bird was locked down with hens. They finally say, hey, you know what, let's just get out of here. We waited and can't get this bird to commit. And so as they're packing up, so now there's that silence that we talked about. As they're packing up, the bird all of a sudden gobbles almost within range. And check this out. Josh makes an awesome headshot on a tom. There's no better way with a bow to take out a tom in a hurry than head shooting him. And he makes a great shot. So just as a recap, the first thing that I do if I've got a bird that's hung up is that I'll try the silent treatment on them. The second thing that I'm going to do is maneuver away from the bird if there's opportunity to maneuver away and make him think that the hen's leaving. And then lastly, if I've given him all the different calls that I have, try to get him fired up, I don't get that bird to move towards me, then I'm going to give him a silent period, whether it's an hour or 2 hours, doesn't matter. I'm going to wait and then try to fire him up again. Quite honestly, the majority of our birds are killed after 10 a.m. And it seems like that sweet spot of 10 to 11 a.m. is a great time to shoot birds. They seem to have, the hens have left them maybe to go work on nests, lay eggs, whatever it is. And so now we have a tom that's out there looking, he's all by himself, and they seem to fire up a lot better for us in that time frame. I hope these things are helpful. Obviously, this is not an exhaustive list, but these are some really cool techniques that we utilize when we got some stubborn old birds. Hope you guys have a great season.